Welcome to the launch of the 2024 fastest growing companies in Eastern Ontario. I'm Michael Curran. This is a special podcast from EOBJ, the Eastern Ontario Business Journal, and our sponsor, MNP. In the next few minutes, we will unveil the fastest growing companies in Eastern Ontario. We'll share their stories. We'll talk about their growth. We'll talk about the barriers they were overcome and also some lessons learned. Before I go any further, I'd like to introduce my colleague at EOBJ that organized this feature for us. Please welcome the editor-in-chief of Eastern Ontario Business Journal. Here is Anne Howland. Hey, Anne.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So tell us about this. This is an annual recurring feature, but tell us about this fall issue of EOBJ with fastest growing companies.
Sure. So just as you say, it's an annual feature that we run, the fastest growing companies. And what we do is we ask companies from around the region to apply and tell us a bit about themselves and particularly their revenue growth over the past 3 years. And then we look at all the applicants that we get and perform a simple calculation of their revenue growth over a 3-year period. And from there, we determine a winner, and we get to learn all about them and their secrets to success.
Neat. It's for me, having watched this for the last few years, it's a little bit about the number because you get some incredible growth numbers over the past 3 years, but it's equally about what they're reporting back to us in terms of the challenge they overcome or lessons learned. When you think about that and what stories might have stood out or themes emerged.
Yeah. So a few things. It's true that we're not seeing the quadruple digit percentage growth in revenue that we saw during the pandemic years when things went absolutely crazy for some of these companies. We're more in the triple digit range now. But what's been interesting this year is a few things. We've had applicants from all over the region, from all over Eastern Ontario. So that's been great, from the Valley down to Kingston to Brockville out to Cornwall. So that's super. And also we've had entrants from various industries. So that's really interesting because often you think fastest growing and you think tech. We do have some tech companies, but we also have companies from the tourism sector and the hospitality sector and the services sector. So that's been really interesting. But I think the thing I took away from this year's applicants was their brutal honesty in some cases about the things that they've learned, lessons learned, mistakes that they made. So honest about, oh, I discovered I didn't have that skill, or, oh, that was a bad decision. But here's what I learned, and here's how I'm going on with the company and improving from here. To me, it's like the true story of an entrepreneur, right? Who almost has probably more failures than they do successes, but they just keep going and let it inform them as they proceed.
Yeah, I think at the surface level, sometimes to your point, people think that entrepreneurs have this straight line to success. Like they had a brilliant idea, they monetized it, they became multimillionaires. That's not the way it works, right? Many entrepreneurs fail. Many entrepreneurs have setbacks, and the companies that we're profiling, and you're going to hear from them in just a minute here, they're full of lessons learned. It's among the best things they're sharing with us.
Yes, absolutely. And just their honesty about saying it, right? And
Yeah.
some people might be reticent to talk about a mistake that they made. But, one fellow was like, I totally realized I didn't have these particular skills. And so I had to change course. It was just really refreshing, I think, to read that because equally they see the value in those lessons.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Anne, and thanks for all the hard work you and your team put into this year's fall issue of Eastern Ontario Business Journal.
Sure. Thanks, Mike.
And that was Anne Howland, the editor-in-chief of Eastern Ontario Business Journal. Okay, who's ready to meet some of the fastest growing companies in Eastern Ontario? Without further ado, here is the first group of recipients. Please enjoy these video profiles. Kicking things off is GlassHouse Botanics with almost 34% revenue growth. From Pembroke, GlassHouse is an EU GMP certified medical cannabis cultivator and processor of dry flowers. Biggest challenge? Navigating the regulatory requirements in Canada and Germany to obtain Health Canada cannabis license and EU GMP certification. GlassHouse worked tirelessly to develop overseas markets and develop strategic partnerships. The biggest lesson? Everything takes twice as long and 4 times as much capital than expected. In the number 8 position is Kemptville Heating and AC with about 55% revenue growth. Kemptville Heating and AC is an HVAC business. Biggest challenge, balancing workload to ensure clients get great service, quality products, and exceptional workmanship. They are addressing that challenge by understanding the dynamics of the industry and relying on good management practices to avoid employee burnout. Biggest lesson, don't grow too fast. Number 7 is Brock IT with almost 68% revenue growth. Out of Brockville, Brock IT is a service provider specializing in higher security environments such as healthcare, financial services, and military. The biggest challenge, service quality for current clients is always affected by adding new clients. New clients take a lot of time to onboard. They address this by limiting the number of new clients to 1 customer per month. The biggest lesson, make sure you have the right paperwork in place to protect your best interests. Number 6 is AquaOmega with 71% revenue growth. Based in Cornwall, AquaOmega aims to be the global leader in both innovation and quality regarding omega-3 fatty acid supplements. The biggest challenge, sourcing the raw materials necessary for its high-quality products and managing cash flow so it can scale inventory. They address that by establishing direct relationships with key players in the supply chain, and on the financial side, developing a comprehensive burn rate and forecasting tool that helps them stay ahead of demand. Biggest lesson, effective communication and embracing a mindset of learning from their mistakes. And there you have it, the first group of recipients in the 2024 fastest growing companies. As I mentioned off the top, this project is supported by MNP. MNP is one of Canada's leading professional service firms, proudly serving individuals, businesses, and organizations since 1958. They've got a great way of describing themselves, which really resonates with us here at EOBJ. They say MNP is national in scope and local in focus. As I said, that really matches our philosophy here at EOBJ. All right, well, let's meet one of the partners joining us from MNP's Kingston office. Please welcome Ryan Moore. Here's Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me on the program.
Oh, that's great. It's great to chat with you again this year. We chatted in 2023. I think most people are probably familiar with MNP, Ryan, but give us a little bit of a sense of what you guys do there in Kingston and other offices, by the way, in Eastern Ontario. But tell us about the Kingston office.
Yeah, so I'm a partner here at the Kingston office, and I've been here for about 15 years. And we merged in with MNP about 3 to 4 years ago. But at the end of the day, we're a full-service accounting and tax firm that sort of specializes in serving sort of the small mid-market of businesses. I practice mostly in assurance and accounting, where I really focus on the for-profit space, being, agriculture, real estate and construction, healthcare professionals, but also have some municipalities. But, a firm of our size, we also specialize in basically every industry, including, not-for-profit services and, again, basically every
Sure.
industry you can think of, we're probably in it or have specialists in it.
Yeah. You make a good point there, by the way, that when I think of MNP, I think of kind of those mid-market companies, the companies, quite frankly, that we report on mostly at EOBJ, and the companies that are appearing on the fastest growing companies list. So it's very apropos. Ryan, as we just talked about, you and your colleagues at MNP and Kingston and beyond often are dealing with fast growing companies that are looking to grow. What are you observing about these types of companies, Ryan?
Well, I think, I mean, it's a tough market to be an entrepreneur in. I mean, it's great coming out of COVID now that things have settled, but a lot of our sort of small businesses that started up, before or during COVID, they've sort of really had to weather a storm of, rising interest and kind of um, higher debt loads. To again weather the storm. And if there's two things that you need when you sort of scale a business and sort of seek to grow productivity, it's kind of, I mean, besides the business idea and the business itself, it's capital, it's human capital, and it's capital to be able to invest in, equipment's the easy one to think of, but to invest in the systems and the people that are really going to grow productivity and grow a business idea. I think when we talk about scaling, a lot of times we talk about scaling up, but I've worked with, a few clients recently that they've gone through that growth period, and then sometimes they actually have to scale down and bring it back to the basics. So, I can think of a local ice cream shop. It grew to 3 or 4 franchises and was no longer to make ice cream at the original store. Um, you know, Went through some challenging times and is now back down to 1 store. And we actually ended up having to scale them back down and bring the manufacturing of the ice cream back locally, um, because it simply didn't make sense to outsource the homemade production of these homemade ingredients when it was only servicing 1 store. So I think tailoring plans, whether it's growth or whether it's scaling back to make sure your business is viable, kind of has to be assessed on an ongoing basis. The other day, I was working with a company that installs sort of household equipment, and we were going over the year-end financials. And one thing that sort of jumped off the page at me when we're having our meeting, is that his cost of sales was going up by as much as his revenues, and his wages were increasing by almost an equal amount of revenues. And so these sort of discussions, we're talking about, well, if your revenues are growing by 100K and your salary costs are growing by 100K, what's the story there? Because clearly you're not seeing an increase in productivity. And sometimes the answer is, oh yeah, I overhired. And sometimes the answer is, oh well, I've invested in human capital to have the capacity to grow my business next year. So I just bring up those 2 stories to sort of highlight it's not really a one size fits all when it comes to entrepreneurs and growing a business, that you really need to look at the big picture, and have these ongoing discussions with your clients to make sure that you're providing them with the business advice, accompanied by the tax advice that sort of suits their story.
For sure. And your comments, Ryan, are bang on. When people are watching in this podcast, the profiles, they're going to hear exactly those comments. People that have, identified or experienced, excuse me, some kind of rapid growth, but aren't prepared for it, weren't prepared in terms of systems, human capital, the money capital as well. It's exactly what you said is reflected in these profiles. When companies come to you, Ryan, at MNP and say, wow, we're growing fast and we feel that we need a little bit of advice on what we should be doing so that this is planned and deliberate growth. What's some of the things you say to them at MNP?
Well, I guess the nice thing about being a business advisor at MNP is, we have quite a few service lines. And so, for myself, I specialize in assurance and tax compliance. So I have my year-end clients. They come to me with their financial information. I put it all together. We have a year-end meeting. I don't pretend to have my boots on the ground and be a specialist in each and every one of their industries, but we have team members that are um, that I can call in some of my other offices, and they're performance improvement specialists. So they can come in and sort of dissect the business and um, really get down to the skeletons of a business, and help advise on sort of what processes, systems, procedures can be implemented on top of what is presumably already a good business idea to sort of help drive and kickstart that growth. And so while I'm having ongoing conversations about what my clients are seeing out in the small business community, what challenges they're facing, um, I can't pretend to have all the answers myself. And so we've got a great network of service lines that can really help different clients depending on obviously their various different needs.
I get the point. Not all businesses or industries are the same, and the success factors and the policies and procedures and processes that go into to various types of businesses, they sometimes need specialized advice. But it's great. It's great, Ryan, that MNP is providing that type of advice. It's so invaluable. Seriously, it's so invaluable to entrepreneurs to get some outside advice. Often entrepreneurs feel, as you know, Ryan, very isolated. They can't necessarily always talk to a spouse. They can't necessarily talk to friends because they don't understand the business. So it's important to get this professional advice to stay on top of your game and really maximize the opportunity.
Well, that's exactly it, Michael. And I always say to my clients, listen, I'm running a small business too. So even though, a well-established firm like MNP may not seem like, a small business, I have to act and make decisions like a business owner myself. I'm not going to pretend to be the person manufacturing widgets in our, small business next door, but I can relate sort of certainly at that business owner level, and understand the challenges that companies are facing, whether it's the specialized labor force shortage. Again, what's going on with banks? We're starting to see interest rates drop, and so liquidity is becoming a bit more available in capital markets. So it's a fun space to be in, and especially to be able to help advise businesses in different industries. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to relate in a lot of situations to our
For
clients.
sure. Listen, Ryan, that's all the time we have for today. So I want to thank you for being part of this podcast again, and for MNP support of Fastest Growing Companies 2024 in Eastern Ontario. Hope to see you really soon. Keep up the good work.
Yes, appreciate being a part of it. Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye. That was Ryan Moore, a partner in MNP's Kingston office. Thanks again to MNP for its support. Well, it's that time. It's time to reveal the top fastest growing companies in Eastern Ontario. Here are the top 5 right now. Number 5 on the list is J&J Landscaping with 93% revenue growth. J&J is a small local landscaping and construction company based in Sydenham. The biggest challenge? Hiring the right staff is always a challenge. So is the uncertainty of future projects. To address that, J&J gets out and talks with people, gets involved in the community, builds strong relationships, and stays positive. The biggest lesson? Know the people and who is supporting you. If you're determined and persistent and seek help, you will succeed. In the number 4 spot is Convergence Design Services with almost 167% revenue growth. Based in Arnprior, Convergence is an end-to-end contract design service company operating in aerospace, hardware, software, mechanical, robotics, and electric vehicle engineering. The biggest challenge? Balancing ongoing complex engineering projects while growing and onboarding the team in lockstep. How they address that? Hiring the best available talent, continuous training, mentoring, and creating a collaborative environment. The biggest lesson? Create an environment of continuous learning and push the technology barrier. In the number 3 position is The Bar with almost 200% revenue growth. From Brockville, The Bar is a full-service bar with live entertainment 6 days per week. Its biggest challenge? Adding and training new staff quickly while trying to handle new ways to accommodate its growing customer base. They address that with incremental day-by-day change. They're constantly learning and evolving. Their biggest lesson? A trusted and reliable staff can go a long way. Cheers to that. In the number 2 slot is Cloudmetric with 240% revenue growth. Cloudmetric is a Kingston company that provides IT management with 24/7 report. Biggest challenge? Scaling operations to keep up with rapid growth while maintaining service quality. To address this, they invested in IT management tools and automated workflows to streamline operations and optimize a resource allocation. The biggest lesson? Be open to change and ready to pivot. Number 1 on the list is Blue Collar Marketing with 619% revenue growth. Blue Collar is a Kingston company that specializes in digital marketing for blue-collar businesses with targeted strategies, strong online presence, and media production. Biggest challenge? Dealing with the ebb and flow of projects, especially in the slower periods. Blue Collar responded by expanding its services, resulting in more consistent work. Its biggest lesson? Stay proactive, focus on building lasting relationships with clients, and always think ahead. And there you have it, the 2024 fastest growing companies in Eastern Ontario. Some great companies who were sharing not only their revenue growth, but those really important stories about the barriers they overcome, the lessons learned. There's something for all of us to learn from them. Congratulations to all of the recipients, and a big thank you to MNP for its continued support of this event. That brings us to the end of this podcast. A reminder that you can visit eobj.ca to read the digital edition of Eastern Ontario Business Journal. That's a flip book that you can go through and read longer profiles, by the way, on all those recipients. You can also sign up for EOBJ monthly email newsletter at that website address. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon. Keep growing in Eastern Ontario. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.